Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles. I always thought betrayal would be something loud. Messy arguments, screaming matches, broken plates. But in the end, it came quietly, like a slow-moving poison, creeping into the spaces between us, rotting everything it touched before I even realized how deep it had spread. I didn't find out in some dramatic fashion. There was no sudden text message flashing on her phone. No lipstick-stained shirt waiting to be discovered. Instead, it was 1,000 little things that, on their own, could be brushed off. But together, they painted a picture so clear it made my stomach turn. It started with the whispers, low conversations she thought I couldn't hear when she was in the bathroom or out on the back porch. Then came the absences, the nights spent working late. The sudden interest in her appearance. The new lingerie she never wore for me. Still, I wasn't the kind of man to jump to conclusions. After all, we'd been married for 3.5 years. We had our ups and downs, but I believed in us. I believed in her. But belief has a funny way of making a fool out of you. One evening, she came home, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She caught my stare and hesitated just a little too long before launching into a well-rehearsed excuse about hugging a coworker goodbye at the office. It was a lie. I knew it. She knew it. And that was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to yell, demand an explanation, or let her cry her way out of it. No, she had already taken something from me. My trust, my faith in her. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me break. I was going to disappear. The art of vanishing. The thing about leaving isn't just walking out the door. It's making sure no one can follow. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Moving money into different accounts, withdrawing just enough cash to last without drawing suspicion. I told her I was working overtime, staying late at the office. In reality, I was wiping my digital footprint clean. She had no idea. The night before I left, I watched her. Really watched her. She sat across from me at the dinner table, smiling like nothing was wrong, talking about a promotion she was hoping for at work. Her phone was flipped over, vibrating every few minutes with notifications she wouldn't check in front of me. She had no idea it was the last time she'd ever have dinner with me. That night, while she slept, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the nightstand next to her phone. A silent goodbye. A final statement. I left the house before dawn, leaving behind nothing but my keys and a single note inside an envelope. She wouldn't find it until I was long gone. It read, "I know. Enjoy your new life. I'm taking mine back. Ghosting my own wife. I didn't just leave town. I buried my old self. I moved to a different state, changed my phone number, deleted every social media account, and started over in a place where no one knew my name. No calls, no emails, no explanations. I didn't even tell my family where I was going. For weeks, I imagined her reaction. The moment she realized I was gone. The phone calls that would go straight to voicemail. The confusion, the panic, the inevitable realization that I had left her behind just as easily as she had left me emotionally. I imagined her searching, trying to reach out, and I imagined the exact moment she realized that she'd never get the chance to explain. For the first time since I discovered her betrayal, I felt at peace. Because for once I had control. She had taken me for granted. Thought I'd always be there, no matter what she did. But she was wrong. She lost me without a fight. And I never planned on looking back. 1 year later, for a while it worked. I built a new life. A quiet one. No attachments. No relationships. Just work, routine, and the comfort of knowing she was nothing more than a memory. Until she found me. One day, I stepped out of a cafe, coffee in hand, and froze. There she was, standing across the street, looking right at me. Her face was pale, her eyes frantic, as if she had seen a ghost. And maybe she had, because as far as I was concerned, the man she married was dead. And whatever she wanted now, she was about to learn that some ghosts don't come back. I had spent a year building a life that had nothing to do with her. Gone was the man who once waited by the door, wondering why his wife was late again. Gone was the husband who held out hope that maybe, just maybe, there was an innocent explanation for everything. That man had been buried the moment I walked away, and in his place was someone new. Someone who didn't look back. And then there she was, standing across the street, frozen in place, her wide eyes locked on me. Disbelief painted across her face like she'd just seen an actual ghost. I felt nothing. Not shock, not anger. Just a cool detachment as I took a slow sip of my coffee, watching her the way a scientist watches an insect trapped in a glass jar. It was almost funny. A year ago, she had all the power. She had secrets, control, the ability to string me along with lies I hadn't yet uncovered. But now she was the one left scrambling. She hesitated for only a second before rushing toward me, her heels clicking against the pavement in frantic bursts. "Mark!" Her voice broke on my name, a mixture of relief, desperation, and something else. I turned away. Not a word, not a glance. I simply walked. Her breath hitched behind me, and then I heard the sound of her shoes as she ran to catch up. "Wait, please." I kept walking. I had no interest in whatever sob story she had rehearsed. She grabbed my arm. That was her first mistake. I stopped, slowly turned, and when my eyes met hers, something in her expression cracked, because there was nothing there. No warmth, no longing, no pain. Just cold, detached indifference. She swallowed. I didn't think I'd ever see you again." "Then maybe you should have stayed gone," I said, my voice even. Her lips parted, her throat working as if trying to form the right words. But she wasn't as quick with her lies this time. There was no carefully spun excuse, no well-practiced manipulation. Only silence. Good. Let her sweat. Why now? I let her flounder for a few more seconds before sighing. "You tracked me down for a reason. Say it and be done with it." Her hands trembled at her sides. I wanted to explain. I almost laughed. "Explain?" I echoed, tilting my head. "Explain what, exactly? How you spent months lying to my face? How you let me think I was the problem while you played house with someone else? Or were you hoping to say something profound? Something that might make me forget the way you looked me in the eye and smiled while stabbing me in the back?" Her face crumbled. "Mark, please," she whispered, voice tight with emotion. "Just let me talk." "Talk," I said, taking a step closer. "I gave you that chance once. 3.5 years of my life, to be exact. And when I finally got the truth, you didn't get a single word from me. Because you didn't deserve one." She flinched. For a second, just a flicker, I saw it, the recognition that she had lost something she could never get back. But it wasn't enough. I turned to leave again, and that's when she blurted it out. "He's gone, Mark." That got my attention. I stopped, just for a moment, just long enough for her to scramble to fill the silence. "He's gone," she repeated, her voice cracking. I made a mistake. I was stupid. She inhaled sharply, shaking her head. "He used me. The second he got bored, he just walked away. He left me with nothing, Mark. Nothing." I finally turned back to face her, studying her carefully. The perfect, polished woman I had once loved was different now. Her designer coat was wrinkled. Her once pristine hair was slightly unkempt. There were dark circles under her eyes, the kind that told me whatever had happened had taken its toll. She wasn't just here because she regretted what she did. She was desperate. And suddenly, everything clicked. "You're broke, aren't you?" I said, watching her reaction. Her lips pressed together. "That's it, isn't it?" I continued, my voice growing sharper. "He didn't just leave you, he drained you dry. And now, after everything, you came looking for me." "I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong, Mark, about everything. You were good to me. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And She choked on her words. For a brief moment, I wondered if she actually meant them, if she truly realized what she had thrown away. But it didn't matter, because the reason she was here wasn't love. It was survival, the cold reality. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I smirked. Her breath hitched. "Mark, you don't get to do this," I said, my voice steady calm. "You don't get to show up a year later, after I erased you from my life, and act like you suddenly understand what you lost. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You chose this, I said. Every night you spent with him, every lie you told, every time you looked at me and decided I wasn't enough. You chose to destroy what we had, and now you have to live with it. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. You think I came here for money? She whispered. For help. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't you? Her lips quivered, but she didn't deny it. I nodded, stepping closer, lowering my voice. Let me be clear. Whatever you lost, you deserve it. Every ounce of pain, every second of regret. I want you to wake up every day knowing that the one man who truly loved you, the one man who would have fought for you, left you in the dust without a second thought. A tear slipped down her cheek. I just wanted to see you again. I stepped back, shaking my head. You already lost that right. With that, I turned. And this time, she didn't follow. But this isn't over. That night, I should have felt relief. I should have felt satisfaction knowing she got exactly what she deserved. Instead, something gnawed at me, because there was one thing she never explained. How exactly had she found me? And more importantly, what else was she hiding? I thought that was the end of it. I had seen the wreckage of my ex-wife's life, watched her crumble under the weight of her own mistakes, and walked away without looking back. She got what she deserved. And yet, something didn't sit right. I replayed our conversation in my head that night, lying awake in my apartment. The way she hesitated, the way she looked too desperate, the way she didn't deny coming for money. But there was something else, something she wasn't saying. And one question lingered in my mind, refusing to let me sleep. How the hell did she find me? A trail that shouldn't exist. I had covered my tracks. When I left, I didn't just move to another town. I erased myself. New job, no online presence, no credit card trails. I paid rent in cash. I used an old flip phone under a prepaid number that wasn't tied to my name. Yet, after a year of complete silence, she just appeared? No, that didn't happen by accident, which meant someone helped her. The thought made my stomach turn. Who else knew where I was? Who had slipped? I spent the next morning making calls. Friends, family, no one had heard from her. No one had told her anything. So how did she do it? The second encounter. I didn't have to wait long for answers. That afternoon, I was coming back from the grocery store when I saw her again. Sitting on the steps of my building, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. I sighed, setting my bags down. You need to leave. She jolted upright, as if she hadn't expected me to show. Mark, please. I shook my head. I gave you your moment. You said your piece. It's done. She bit her lip, her hands trembling. I just need to talk to you. One last time. And then I'll go. I stared at her, debating. Every instinct told me to walk away, to keep moving and never let her back in. But I needed to know how she found me, what she wanted. So I sighed, unlocking my door and gesturing her inside. 5 minutes. The truth begins to crack. She stepped inside cautiously, as if she wasn't sure whether I'd slam the door behind her or throw her back out. I didn't offer her a seat. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Talk. She swallowed. I know you don't believe me, but I didn't come here for money. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't deny it yesterday. Her lips pressed together. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me no matter what I said. But it's not about that. I needed to see you. See me? I scoffed. For what? Closure? You got that when I walked out of your life. You don't get to rewrite history now that your new life fell apart. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. She took a shaky breath. I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but I didn't come to take anything from you. I came because I was scared. I narrowed my eyes. Scared of what? She hesitated. And there it was, that flicker of something else, something darker, beneath her carefully rehearsed pain. I waited, letting the silence drag out, letting her squirm. Finally, she cracked. He found out where I was. Mark, she whispered. Brent. My pulse slowed. Her affair partner. The man she left me for. The one who had walked away after using her for everything she had. I kept my expression blank. And she rubbed her arms like she was trying to warm herself. He wasn't just some guy, Mark. He lied about everything. He wasn't single. He wasn't even who he said he was. I tilted my head. That's rich. A liar lying to a liar. Her face crumbled, but I wasn't here to comfort her. I let the weight of my words settle. Then, finally, I asked, "What does that have to do with me?" She exhaled sharply, her breath shaking. "Because I think he's looking for you too." The real reason she came back. I went still. For a second, I thought I had misheard her. Then I laughed. Low, cold. Why the hell would he be looking for me? She looked down at the floor. Because I told him about you. I stared. Excuse me? Her hands twisted together. Not everything. Just after he left me, I was desperate. I didn't know what to do. I mentioned you. I told him you used to be smart about money, that you were good at disappearing, that you left me without a trace. I clenched my jaw. You used me as a damn example? She flinched. I didn't think he'd care. I was hurt, Mark. And then when I found out the truth about him, I thought he was gone. But then, a few weeks ago, he found me. He started showing up places, calling from different numbers. And I realized that maybe I didn't know what kind of man I had been with. I shook my head. Let me get this straight. You cheat on me, throw away our marriage, get burned, and then in your infinite wisdom you decide to mention me to some guy you barely knew? And now what? You think I'm supposed to help you? Her voice cracked. I don't know what to do, Mark. I exhaled slowly, running a hand down my face. This was worse than I thought. She wasn't just here for money. She was running. From him. And now, because of her stupidity, so was I. The game changes. I studied her, my mind working fast. There were two ways this played out. 1. I kicked her out, let her deal with her own mess. 2. I played along. Dug deeper. Because if she was telling the truth, if this guy really was dangerous, then this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about who else knew about me. I took a deep breath. You said he was looking for me. How? She hesitated, eyes darting to mine. I don't know. But I think, she swallowed, I think someone's been following me. And if he knows I came here, then he knows about you now too. A slow chill spread through my chest. This wasn't over. Not even close. I straightened, locking eyes with her. You said you needed my help. She nodded frantically. Then start talking. And this time, don't leave anything out. Her throat bobbed, because she knew. This wasn't about second chances anymore. This was about survival. I had walked away from my past, from her, from the life that had nearly broken me. But now, because of her stupidity, my name was in the mouth of a man I had never met. A man who apparently had no problem tracking people down. And that meant I was no longer just her ex-husband. I was a target, piecing together the lies. She sat stiffly across from me, her fingers curling into the hem of her coat like she was trying to anchor herself. I stared at her. Start talking. Everything. From the beginning. She swallowed. Brent wasn't just some businessman, she admitted, voice low. He wasn't even Brent. His real name is Daniel Marsh. I found out too late, after he drained my accounts, after he took off. He's a con man, Mark. A professional one. I kept my expression blank, but my mind was working fast. And why is he looking for me? Her gaze darted down. Because I made the mistake of talking about you when I was trying to make him jealous. I told him how you disappeared so easily. How no one could find you. He laughed it off at first, but then he got interested. He started asking questions. Asking if I knew how you did it, if I still had connections to you. I clenched my jaw. This idiot had used my name as some cautionary tale, and now a professional scam artist thought I was some kind of expert in disappearing. Why does he care? I asked, voice cold. She bit her lip. Because I think he's in trouble, Mark. The kind that makes people desperate. He didn't just steal from me, he's been running the same scam for years. And I think someone finally caught up to him. I exhaled sharply, gripping the counter behind me. So let me get this straight. You cheat on me, throw away our marriage, then when your new guy screws you over, you let my name slip to a criminal. And now, because of you, this guy might be coming after me. Her face crumpled. I didn't mean to. I don't give a damn what you meant, Lisa, I snapped. What I care about is what comes next. A dangerous man. She flinched but didn't argue. Good. I started pacing, my mind racing. How did you find me? I finally asked. She hesitated, then sighed. He was the one who gave me a lead. I froze mid-step. Excuse me? She licked her lips. After he came back, after I realized he was watching me, he mentioned you. Said he had ways of finding people. That if I ever saw you again, I should let him know. Something cold curled in my stomach. Lisa, I said slowly, did you tell him where I was? Her eyes widened. No, I swear. But if he's been watching me, if he knew I was looking for you, then he could be on his way. A thick silence filled the space between us. Lisa's breath hitched. Mark, what do we do? I stared at her. For years, I had been a man who let things happen to me. I had been the husband who trusted blindly, who forgave too easily, who thought love was enough to keep betrayal at bay. But that man was dead. And if this Brent or Daniel or whatever the hell his name was thought he could pull me into his mess, he had another thing coming. I turned to Lisa, my voice steady. We set a trap, luring him in. Lisa blinked. A trap? I nodded. He's already watching you. That means he's waiting to see if you'll reach out to me. So we give him what he wants. We let him think you've convinced me to help you. She hesitated. And then what? I smirked. Then we see just how badly this guy needs to disappear. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. Brent, Daniel, whatever his name was, thought he could track me, manipulate me, use me. But what he didn't know, I had spent the last year perfecting the art of being invisible. And now, I was about to make sure he disappeared forever. The setup. It didn't take much to bait the hook. Lisa made a single call from a burner phone, one I provided, to a number she had memorized but never dared to use. Brent, she whispered, voice trembling. I found him. He bit instantly. Told her he'd meet her at a neutral location. Told her he just wanted to talk. But I wasn't an idiot. Men like him never just talked. So I followed her to the meeting place, a rundown motel off the highway, the kind of place where no one asked questions. She was nervous, wringing her hands as she stood in the dim parking lot. What if this doesn't work? I watched from the shadows, my voice calm. Then we handle it another way. A sleek black car pulled in, headlights cutting through the night. Brent stepped out. Tall, confident, the kind of man who had spent his life making people trust him. He looked polished even here, a crisp button-down, expensive shoes. But there was something else. A slight edge to his movements. A nervousness in his eyes. This wasn't just a man looking for an easy score. This was a man on the run. Lisa took a step toward him. You came. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course I did, sweetheart. You know I always take care of you. Lies. So many lies. Lisa hesitated. Mark's willing to help. He knows how to disappear. He. Brent's gaze snapped up. His smile grew wider. Does he now? He was looking for me. Good. Because I was already 3 steps ahead. Flipping the script. I let him get comfortable. Let him think Lisa was still his desperate little pawn. And then I stepped out of the shadows. His whole body stiffened. Hello, Daniel, I said smoothly. His eyes flickered with something sharp, recognition, calculation. So, the ghost himself finally appears. I smiled. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. He tilted his head, something unreadable in his expression. Lisa tells me you know how to disappear. That true? I shrugged. Depends on who's asking. He chuckled. Well, let's just say I'm in need of a fresh start. I let the silence stretch before finally saying, for a price. His smirk widened. Of course. And what price would that be? I stepped closer. And then I said the one thing he wasn't expecting. Everything you stole. Every dollar. Every cent. You give it back. All of it. And in return, I leaned in, my voice deadly quiet. I make you disappear for real. His smile flickered, because he knew this wasn't a game anymore. And the man standing in front of him wasn't someone he could con. Brent, Daniel, whatever the hell his real name was, had spent his life manipulating people. He lived in shadows, weaving lies so seamlessly that his victims never even knew they'd been played until their bank accounts bled dry. But this time he had miscalculated, because I wasn't one of his victims, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let him make me one. The game shifts. He let out a slow, measured breath, that fake smile still plastered across his face. That's a bold demand, Mark. I shrugged. Not a demand. A choice. You pay up, you disappear, and we both walk away clean. Or, I let the silence stretch. His jaw tightened. Or what? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Or I make sure you don't get the chance to run ever again. His gaze flickered to Lisa, then back to me, assessing, calculating. He was debating whether he could con his way out of this. He couldn't. You really think you can track all my money down? He asked smoothly. I chuckled. I don't have to. I just have to make your life miserable enough that you'll wish you had handed it over. And then, for the first time, I saw it. The crack. A flash of uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't as untouchable as he wanted people to believe. Good. Because I was about to rip his entire world apart. The leverage. I pulled my phone from my pocket, turning the screen toward him. Paused video of him, sitting in a sleek restaurant, laughing, leaning close to a woman. Not Lisa, not even close, while a recorded conversation played over the speakers. Baby, you don't have to worry about my wife. She's just a means to an end. A walking ATM. Daniel's smirk faltered. Lisa sucked in a sharp breath. You recorded him? I didn't answer her. I kept my eyes locked on him. This is just one of many, I continued. You're sloppy, Daniel. You ran the same game too many times and you got cocky. You left a trail of pissed-off people. People who want you found. I saw the realization sink in. This wasn't just a threat. It was checkmate. His last desperate move. His face darkened. You don't want to play this game with me, Mark. Wrong, I said smoothly. You don't want to play this game with me. His fingers twitched, his body tensing. I knew that look. The moment a man decides to act. I was ready before he even moved. The second he lunged, I sidestepped, letting his own momentum carry him forward. My elbow drove into his ribs, knocking the air out of his lungs, and as he stumbled, I shoved him hard against the car. He wheezed, coughing, but I wasn't done. I grabbed the front of his shirt, yanking him up until our faces were inches apart. This is how it's going to go, I murmured. You're going to wire every damn cent back to Lisa. You're going to erase yourself from my life. And if I ever hear my name out of your mouth again, I slammed him back against the car. You'll wish the people chasing you found you first. His lips curled, something almost like admiration flickering in his gaze. You're a real piece of work. You know that? I grinned. So I've been told. The end of the line. Took less than an hour. Lisa sat next to me in stunned silence as Daniel transferred the money back into her account. His jaw tight, his fingers clenched around his phone. Every dollar. I watched the numbers appear on her screen, then turned back to him. Now vanish. He stood, brushing off his jacket, throwing Lisa one last smirk. You really were my easiest mark, sweetheart. Lisa flinched, but I didn't. I just smiled. And now you're mine. Daniel hesitated, then turned and walked into the night. Gone. For good. The final goodbye. Lisa stared at the money on her screen like it was some cruel joke. I don't know what to say. I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face. You don't have to say anything. Her eyes flickered to mine, searching, hopeful. Maybe now we can. I shook my head. No, Lisa. She swallowed. Mark, No, I repeated, firmer this time. I helped you because I had to, because your mess became my problem. But this doesn't change anything. Tears welled in her eyes. I never stopped loving you. I stared at her for a long moment, and then I said the one thing that had been burning in my chest since the day I left. But I did. She sucked in a sharp breath, and with that I turned and walked away, for the last time. A week later, I packed my things. A new town, a new place, a new life. Lisa was someone else's ghost now, not mine. And as I drove off, leaving the past behind for good, I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled, because for the first time in my life, I was finally free. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.